All right, so we're diving into something today that you might not expect.
Okay.
Physiotherapy for male urinary incontinence.
Oh.
You might be thinking, isn't that like a women's health thing?
Right, yeah.
But get ready for a bit of a perspective shift.
Yeah.
We're going deep into this systematic review of 39 studies.
Wow. 39. Okay.
All about this, honestly, often overlooked condition in men,
Yeah.
especially after they have prostate surgery.
Interesting.
This review was published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine,
Okay.
and it is packed with insights.
Cool.
We are going to uncover just how common male UI is,
Okay.
the reasons why it happened,
Mm.
and what physiotherapy techniques can actually make a difference.
Okay, so it's more common than people think.
Yeah.
The review actually highlights that up to 42% of men experience UI.
Wow.
And that number jumps to 69% after a prostatectomy.
69%, that's a huge number.
It is.
What makes this issue so common after prostate procedures?
Well, I think it all comes down to the anatomy, in that area.
Yeah.
Prostate surgery, whether it's for cancer or an enlarged prostate,
Right.
can really disrupt the nerves and muscles that control urination.
Right.
So this can lead to a weakened sphincter muscle.
One that keeps the urethra closed.
Exactly, yeah. And even changes to the urethra itself.
Mm.
All of these factors can contribute to UI.
You would think, though, that with UI being so common,
Yeah.
especially after prostate surgery,
Right.
the go-to solution would just be something simple like wearing pads.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But this review actually emphasizes that physiotherapy should be the first-line treatment for male UI.
Oh, really? I'm
Yeah.
surprised to hear
Yeah.
even the European Association of Urology
Mm-hmm.
and the American Neurological Association recommend this.
I do, yep.
So instead of just managing the symptoms with something like a pad,
Mm-hmm.
physiotherapy aims to actually strengthen the muscles
Right.
to address the root of the problem.
Exactly. And the key player here is pelvic floor muscle training.
PFMT.
Yeah, PFMT.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of PFMT,
Okay.
but I'll admit my knowledge is pretty limited.
Sure.
Is it as simple as just doing a few Kegels here and there?
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that.
Okay.
It's like a targeted workout routine for your pelvic floor muscles,
Mm-hmm.
designed to improve their strength,
Okay.
their endurance, and their coordination.
Gotcha.
And it really needs to be individualized.
Okay.
You have to take into account the type of UI.
Oh, so there are different types of UI.
There are, yeah.
Okay.
Like whether it's stress incontinence, urge incontinence,
Uh-huh.
or a mix of both.
Okay. Can you explain the difference between those? Stress, urge, and mixed.
Absolutely. So stress incontinence is when urine leaks during activities that put pressure on the bladder,
Okay.
like coughing, sneezing, exercising, things like that.
Yeah.
Urge incontinence is that sudden, intense urge to urinate
Right.
that's hard to control and sometimes leads to leakage.
Okay.
And then, of course, mixed incontinence is a combination of both.
Gotcha. That's really helpful. Thanks for clarifying.
Sure.
So back to PFMT. It sounds like there's more to it than just squeezing those muscles randomly throughout the day.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
What does a good PFMT program actually involve?
So a good PFMT program will involve specific instructions on how many repetitions to do,
Okay.
how long to hold each contraction,
Mm-hmm.
and even what position to be in while you're doing them.
I see.
Yeah, and a pelvic floor physiotherapist can help tailor these exercises to your specific needs.
So pelvic floor physiotherapist really plays a crucial role in this process.
Absolutely, yeah. They can help you learn the correct technique,
Okay.
fine-tune the exercises, and guide you through the entire, recovery journey.
This whole idea of strengthening your pelvic floor
Yeah,
for surgery is
Mhm.
fascinating to me.
right.
Is that something the review touched on?
It did, yes.
What did it say?
They highlighted the importance of timing when it comes to PFMT.
Okay.
Starting PFMT before prostate surgery, what we call prehab, can have a huge impact on recovery and long-term continence.
So it's like building muscle memory.
Exactly, yeah.
By strengthening those muscles beforehand,
Mm-hmm.
you're giving yourself a head start on regaining control after surgery.
You are.
Makes a lot of sense.
Some studies have actually shown greater continence improvement when men start PFMT before a prostatectomy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So even if you're not experiencing UI yet,
Mm,
if you know you're having prostate surgery,
yeah,
it's worth starting those exercises early.
absolutely. It's always better to be proactive when it comes to your health.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
This is all it's so insightful. I'm already like rethinking my assumptions about UI.
Okay.
And it's treatment.
Yeah.
It's empowering to know there are things you can do
Mm-hmm.
to potentially prevent or at least mitigate UI.
Right.
I am curious, though, beyond PFMT,
Mm.
did the review mention any other techniques that can be helpful?
Yeah, they mentioned biofeedback and electrical stimulation
Okay.
as tools that can be used alongside PFMT.
What exactly is biofeedback?
So imagine being able to see and hear your pelvic floor muscles working.
Oh.
That's essentially what biofeedback does.
Oh, wow.
It uses sensors to provide real-time visual and auditory feedback, which helps you learn to correctly activate and control those muscles.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like having a personal trainer for your pelvic floor.
What about electrical stimulation?
So electrical stimulation uses a mild electrical current to trigger contractions in your pelvic floor muscles.
Interesting.
It's particularly helpful for men who have difficulty voluntarily activating those muscles, giving them a little extra boost.
It sounds like these techniques could be used together for a more comprehensive approach to treatment.
Exactly. The review found that combining PFMT with biofeedback and/or electrical stimulation can enhance the effectiveness of the therapy, especially after prostatectomy.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's a lot to consider when it comes to physiotherapy for male UI.
There is, and it's important to remember that every individual is different. So what works for one person may not work for another.
Yeah.
This is where a qualified healthcare professional comes in
Yeah.
to assess your specific needs
Right.
and develop a personalized treatment plan.
I mean, this has been so enlightening for me. I'm already rethinking my assumptions about UI and its treatment.
Yeah.
But before we move on to other things, I'm curious about other therapies that are sometimes mentioned in relation to UI.
Sure.
Things like Pilates or acupuncture.
Right.
Did the review address those at all?
They did mention a few other therapies that have shown, some positive results.
Okay.
But the evidence supporting them is still limited compared to PFMT.
Gotcha.
More research is needed to fully understand their role in treating male UI.
Okay, so PFMT remains kind of the gold standard.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But it's good to know there are other avenues to explore. It's encouraging to know that there are options besides just accepting UI as your new normal.
Absolutely. And that's really the key takeaway here, UI doesn't have to be something men suffer in silence.
Right.
There are effective treatments available.
Yeah.
And physiotherapy is really a powerful tool in the fight against this condition.
I couldn't agree more. This has been such an eye-opening conversation already.
Okay, good.
Now, before we get into the impact UI can have on a man's quality of life, let's take a moment for our listeners to absorb all this great information.
Sure.
We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into this important topic.
Sounds good. Before we took that break, you brought up Pilates and acupuncture.
Right. We were curious about whether those therapies might also be helpful for men with UI.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, while the research on those specific therapies is still, kind of emerging, it's great that people are thinking outside the box when it comes to managing this condition.
I agree.
I think it speaks to a growing awareness and a desire to explore all possible avenues for treatment.
For those listening who are ready to take that first step, what would you recommend?
I think the most crucial step is to have an open and honest conversation with your healthcare provider.
Okay.
They can assess your individual situation, determine the underlying cause of your UI, and recommend the most appropriate treatment approach.
Okay.
They may even be able to refer you to a specialist, like a pelvic floor physiotherapist.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of being proactive, this deep dive has focused on physiotherapy as a treatment.
Right.
But I'm wondering, is there anything men can do to reduce their risk of developing UI in the first place?
That's a great question. And while some risk factors like age and prostate surgery are, unavoidable, there are lifestyle modifications that can potentially contribute to, better pelvic floor health.
Like what kind of lifestyle modifications are we talking about?
Things like maintaining a healthy weight, avoiding smoking, and managing conditions like diabetes and constipation. These can all play a role in supporting, overall pelvic floor health.
So it's about taking a holistic approach to your health.
Exactly.
Recognizing those interconnected aspects. It makes me think we've been discussing UI in the context of prostate issues.
Right.
But can these techniques also benefit men who experience UI that's not related to cancer or surgery?
Absolutely. While this particular review focused on post-prostatectomy UI, PFMT and other pelvic floor therapies can be beneficial for men with UI stemming from various causes.
Okay.
The principles are the same, but the specific exercises and treatment plan might need to be adjusted based on the individual's needs.
So again, it kind of highlights the importance of working with a healthcare professional
Yeah.
to determine the root cause of the UI and tailor the treatment accordingly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, one thing that really stood out to me in this review was the emphasis on the impact UI can have on a man's quality of life.
Yeah, it's not just a physical issue.
No, not at all.
There's an emotional and social component as well.
Exactly. The studies in this review consistently showed that men who underwent physiotherapy for UI reported significant improvements not only in their physical symptoms, but also in their overall quality of life.
Interesting.
They felt more confident, more in control, and less self-conscious.
I can imagine that regaining that sense of control can have a ripple effect on so many aspects of a man's life.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so important to raise awareness about this condition and encourage men to seek help if they're struggling.
Right.
There's no shame in seeking treatment. It's about taking charge of your health and well-being.
I think a lot of men might hesitate to even talk about UI.
I agree.
Even with their doctor. It can feel like a really sensitive topic.
It's understandable there can be a stigma associated with it, but the reality is it's a common problem and there are effective solutions available. The sooner you seek help, the sooner you can start regaining control and improving your quality of life.
That's a really important message. I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah.
But it's clear that there's still so much more to learn about male UI and its treatment.
Yeah.
What resources would you recommend for those who want to delve deeper?
Well, there are some great organizations out there like the National Association for Continence. They provide a wealth of information, support groups, and even a directory of healthcare professionals specializing in UI.
So for those feeling overwhelmed or unsure where to turn, there are people who understand and can provide guidance and support.
Absolutely. You don't have to navigate this alone.
It's good to hear.
It's amazing how something as seemingly simple as physiotherapy can have such a profound impact on men's lives.
Yeah.
It's really a testament to the interconnectedness of our bodies and the power of targeted therapies.
This deep dive has definitely given me a whole new perspective on male UI.
Okay.
And the importance of physiotherapy. It's been enlightening and encouraging, to say the least.
I agree. It's empowering to know that men have options and that effective treatments are available.
We've explored the prevalence of male UI, the reasons behind it, and the various physiotherapy techniques that can help.
Right.
But most importantly, we've emphasized that UI is not something men have to suffer in silence.
Exactly.
There are resources available.
Yeah.
And there's hope for a better quality of life.
That's right. Don't hesitate to reach out for help if you're struggling with UI. You deserve to feel confident and in control of your body.
Well said. This deep dive has been a journey of discovery.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up,
Okay.
we want to leave you with a final thought-provoking question to consider.
Right.
We'll be right back after a quick pause to delve into that.
Sounds good.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive into physiotherapy for male UI.
Yeah, we have.
We've learned about the different types, the honestly kind of shocking prevalence,
Yeah.
and all those various techniques that can make a real difference.
Right.
But before we wrap things up, we want to leave you with something to ponder.
A lot of what we discussed has focused around UI in the context of prostate issues, especially after cancer treatment.
Right.
But this got me thinking, what about younger men who experience UI that's not related to cancer or even prostate problems? Could these same physiotherapy techniques like PFMT be just as effective for them?
That is a really interesting question.
Yeah.
It would seem logical that, strengthening the pelvic floor could be beneficial in, many situations.
It could.
Regardless of the cause.
Exactly. And while this specific review focused on post-prostatectomy UI, there's a whole world of research out there exploring the benefits of physiotherapy for men with UI from, various causes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
This deep dive has been such an eye-opener, and it's clear that there's still so much more to discover.
I agree.
It's exciting to think about the potential for these techniques to help even more men. And to our listeners who are dealing with UI, we want to say this: you are not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone.
It's more common than you think, and there's absolutely no shame in seeking help.
Absolutely not.
There are incredible resources available, like, the National Association for Continence, that can provide support, guidance, and connect you to healthcare professionals who specialize in UI.
Exactly.
So don't suffer in silence.
Right.
Reach out.
Ask questions.
Explore all the actions available to you.
I agree.
Physiotherapy can be such a powerful tool, not just for, addressing the physical symptoms,
Right.
but for reclaiming your confidence and improving your overall quality of life.
It can.
Remember, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more we all understand about male UI,
Right.
the better equipped we are to address it.
Absolutely.
And the more empowered men will feel to seek the help they deserve.
Well said.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into physiotherapy for male urinary incontinence. We hope you found this exploration as fascinating and informative as we did.
I hope so.
Remember, there's hope, there's help, and you don't have to go through this alone.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.